I love this movie. I saw the light, I know prior to this movie that you guys did here, I could only find a handful, or barely a handful of movies that depicted Hank's life, and one of them starred George Hamilton, and he was like lip syncing the movie, I believe. And in this movie, Tom's doing his own vocals, which, is amazing in itself. Tell us, what is so groundbreaking about this film?
I don't criticize the other movies. They were made for different reasons. I mean, the 1964 George Hamilton film was shepherded by Audrey, his wife. So a little bit of that, there was a little bit of an agenda that was going on there, I think. It was, and of course in those times, there were people who were making searing movies that really were truthful, but not as often. This is a film that we endeavored to make as true as we possibly could, warts and all, and to go into it with just complete dedication to dealing with Hank's demons and dealing with his difficulties with fame, his difficulties with women and so forth. And then, of course, Tom took on this really, really challenging aspect of it, which was to sing the songs himself, and which is something I always endeavored and always planned on doing. But, of course, I didn't really know Bobby, he was going to be able to do it so well. And the thing about that is, we went into it knowing he could never sound exactly like Hank Williams. We weren't out to make a film that mimicked Hank Williams, nor a film that started with Hank Williams as a little boy and took him through his whole life. We were trying to get a slice of a very young man's artistic life, right, and do it in the most visceral way we could, and that required Tom diving into the deepest water.
Tell us about some more details you guys have in this film that makes it so authentic, such as, the costume, the cars, maybe locations.
Well, we certainly tried to do as much as we could without drawing too much attention and taking too much credit and going like, wow, aren't we cool to do that? But Tom will tell you about some of the costumes, which is very interesting because we were very involved together on finding exactly what it was. Not just the ones on stage, but what he wore on a day-to-day basis, so we could be very authentic about that.
Tell us about Tom.
Well, we worked with a costume designer called Lali Poor, who was so dedicated in recreating both the kind of on-screen persona of Hank Williams, because he was this incredible star, and he loved the style. He always loved that cowboy look, and so it was 10-gallon hats and fringe and nudie suits, and my suits were actually made by Nudie's granddaughter.
Wow.
But there were also other other sort of more regular clothes that people wore. It's funny, they often say when you're recreating period is that if you can't recreate the period as it's sort of as a template from a design book. Actually, if you're recreating the 40s, you also have to recreate the things that were handed down from the 30s and the 20s and the early part of that century, because everybody wears the hand-me-downs, So there was a bit of that thrown in there too.
I know that when you first, thought of Tom for the role, you saw the movie War Horse. Yeah, and I know you did vocal training with Rodney, and I think you might have lived with them. I'm not sure if you lived with them in order to get this thing right? Tell us about your resemblance, being, going on the day of the first set, and you resemble the guy pretty much to the T. Tell us of the confidence that gave you towards this role.
Well, listen, just because I look like the guy doesn't mean I can play him. So there was a degree of legwork that I had to put in before I started. It was always surprising. I never knew that I looked like him until Marc pointed it out, to be honest. And then once that was true, I had blonde hair and blue eyes, and he had very dark hair and dark eyes, and so I had to dye my hair and wear brown contact lenses, and then I had to lose a bit of weight. He was a very thin guy, and then really the work was with Rodney. Was trying to get into the music and play the music and practice the music and invest myself in the music.
Well, I mean, you look exactly like him. We have proof right here, guys. We have a picture, a side-by-side image of Hank and Tom. Let's check it out, guys. Here you go.
There you go.
Is that what you saw at War Horse?
That's the one.
Well, I did notice, I noticed two things. he's very dynamic in the movie, and it's a very poignant role, very vulnerable role. He had to, and so I'm not just saying this to make Tom feel good. I thought he popped out of the movie for me. That was the first thing. And it was after I was watching him that I did turn to my wife and I did sort of say, honey, he looks a lot like Hank Williams. To which she turned to me and says, we're trying to watch the movie. Do we always have to talk about Hank Williams? But the resemblance. But then, then it became a long conversation. Of Tom was doing a couple of other things, and he and I got together on the telephone first, and we Skyped together, and then eventually we got together in person. And really, despite the fact that he did look like him, and that was the impetus, and that was where it started, what really became the reason that we did the film together was that we saw the same movie. Right. We were approaching it from the same emotional and artistic way, and that really gave me the confidence that, hey, I'm going to be up there swimming with a guy that is, we're going in the same direction.
Nice.
Give 1 second on Luke the Drifter.
Yeah, I'll give you
Okay.
some.
That
Drifter,
sounds good.
yeah.
How about that, Bob?
Hey, thank you. That's because we're friends.
Okay. So Hank had this alter ego called Luke the Drifter, and he used to do these poems, and they sounded something like this. Friends, I wonder just how many homes are broken tonight, just how many tears are shed by some little word of anger that never should have been said. There you go.
Thank
That's
you
my
so
Luke
much.
the Drifter.
Bravo. I was waiting for you to go for another hour. It was amazing. Thanks. You guys got to go out and see this movie. It's out all over the place this weekend. Check it out, guys. These guys are amazing.
Thank you.